it is being recorded. And I'll just double check, make sure it's not a silent movie. It is not silent. That's all good. All right. So this is a great way to start the second half because we are now going to go through the command lines to set up the boot manager. And then after that, we can finish the rest of the whole thing. All right. So the first command that we want to type is called SU, which stands for switch user. Okay. So this allows you to switch user without having to log out first and then log back in. So SU is a very, very useful command as far as administration is concerned on Linux. So I'll go to my command line here and just go ahead and do this. SU. It will ask you for the password of the root user. In Linux, the root user is the administrator of the system. Okay? So on the real system, no matter what you do, you don't want the root password to be known by somebody else. Okay? So you got to protect your root password. But since this is just an education system, and I don't have any connectivity from outside, the root password is just beer, root beer. Okay.
You can change it if you want.
You can change it if you want, but it's not going to be saved, depending on how you set up your persistence, but it may not be saved. But the nice thing about a live distribution is what? A live distribution is supposed to be burned originally. It is supposed to be burned onto a CD-ROM or a DVD, media. You pop that media onto your drive, your tray, and you start up the system, and it will run the operating system. So what if someone managed to break into the system? What can they do to this DVD or the CD-ROM? They cannot overwrite it, right? So at the time when the computer is still up and powered up, the virus, the worm, may be active. Okay, I'm not saying Linux is 100% secure. There's no such thing. But as soon as you power down the computer, it's all gone. Because there's no way to actually store the infected file onto a live distribution. Okay? And that is actually how I'm trying to set up the partitions here. Okay? That's why it's not installed. Instead, it is called a live distribution. The operating system, the utility programs, the application programs, those are all burned, quote unquote, burned into the ISO file. So I'm using the ISO file as if it is just a DVD or a CD-ROM. Okay? Okay, so now that we are done with SU, we are going to execute the next command. The next command is to find out where is my ISO file. Okay? If I'm booting into this environment, I already have the ISO file stored somewhere. So I just have to find it, and this command will do it. Now this command is mount. This is a vertical bar, which is shift \. This is the key right on top of the enter key. And grep is a command to search for a particular pattern. In this case, the pattern I'm looking for is ISO. Okay. So what this command is doing is it will take the output of the command mount. If you just type mount and press the enter key, it will give you a whole bunch of information. Let me just kind of do it here. Okay, so press the mount, and then press the enter key. It's a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, I don't want to have to read through all this stuff to find what I want to find. If I have a system utility program that can search for a word for me, I'll just use it, right? So that's why I use the other command, which is mount, and then use the output of mount, feed it to the command called grep, and look for the pattern ISO. And you can see the outcome of this command is a lot cleaner. Okay, it shows me it is located here. Well, there are two entries, but this is the one that I want. Maybe not. This is the one that I want because it is of type ISO 9660. So I have just located the ISO protocol file. So this command finds out where the ISO image is mounted. In my case, the output of the command is blah, 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 blah. And you can see how the type is ISO 9660 here. So the bottom line is it is in SDB1, in this case, in the notes. In this particular case, it is in SDB4, okay? Because you want to focus on the one where it says, oh, I take it back. It is actually loop 0 in this case. Yep.
You grep new to look for all active partitions.
It will look through all the mounted partitions.
All the mounted
partitions. But the fact that I'm running off of a live distribution means that file has to be mounted already.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why that's how I can locate it. But in this case, it's loop 0. Okay. So once I have located that, the next step you have to do it very carefully, because if you do it wrong, you can end up trashing something that you may not want to trash. Okay. All right. So with this one, it's called the DD command. Now the DD command is deceptively simple and devious. Okay? If you use it wrong, you can end up destroying the content of your internal hard drive irreversibly. So you have to be extra careful. Okay? So what we'll do is we are going to be extra careful by confirming which partition do we want to use DD on. Well, DD in this case is actually not too bad. There's a previous step that I did not show you guys. It is to mount the boot partition. So it's described in the steps, but since I jumped around in my own notes, that's why it wasn't done. So what we need to do is to mount the boot partition of the new hard drive that we have just worked on. So there are several ways to do this. You can go back to gpart-ed, go to the partition that we want to mount, right-click on it, and say, oh, it doesn't have an option to mount it here. It's grayed out. All right, let's do it on the other side. Okay, you can see on the desktop boot partition, you can see this one. You can right-click on it, and then just click mount. Okay. Okay. This is probably a good time to explain, okay, but what is mounting? Okay, what is mounting in the context of a file system? Because Windows doesn't have this concept, okay? Windows has a drive letter concept, which basically means when you plug in a USB thumb drive, a new drive will pop up with a new drive letter, okay? If you have used all the way up to G already, the next one's going to be the H drive, and so on, okay? In Linux, there's no such thing. There's no such concept as a drive letter. Instead, there's one single file system, a single directory system. So how do you attach a new storage device? How do you make use of a new storage device? Well, the answer is actually more elegant than the Windows way of doing things. The Windows way of doing things comes all the way from CPM, which is a really old operating system. Mounting means the content of this particular partition will now appear in a particular quote-unquote folder in the main directory system. And the standard is /, which is the root folder, media, which is where all the mounted drives are located, user, which is the name of the user that had this partition mounted, and then the name of the partition, which is boot.img. Let's double check and make sure that that really is there. Okay, so we'll double check what I just said. So we go to a command line and then we say, show me what is the content. ls is a command to list the content of a folder. For those of you who know DOS commands, this is the same thing as a dir, dir. Okay, it's just listing the content of a folder. So ls, and then you specify which folder you want to use. A single / means the root folder. This is the top level folder, okay? And then you say media, which is a subfolder that contains all the mounted drives. But since I mount the drive as user, it will be under user, and the name of the drive is boot.img. And press the enter key. Well, it looks like it didn't do anything, but guess what? By showing nothing here, not a single error message, it simply means there's nothing in that folder. Because we just created that partition. We haven't created anything yet in that folder. Okay? So this is what mounting means in Linux. Okay? It is taking the content of a storage device and make the content appear in one of the subfolders of the main directory systems. So it does not make use of drive letters. It just uses this method to access the content of an external hard drive. or thumb drive, or whatever storage device that you can plug onto your computer. Are there any questions? So I'm kind of, yeah, go ahead.
My boot is not visible for some reason.
It's not visible?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I did it.
Or maybe it's already in use. Maybe you're actually using it.
I put it both in my boot drive.
Oh, okay. Your boot has to be FAT32. You cannot. It should not be.
Okay.
You can.
Is it okay?
You can repartition it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear very well. Is it IS or LS?
LS.
LS.
Yeah, this is lowercase l, lowercase s, the ls. Okay. So there's nothing here. That's okay because we are going to put a file over there. So the way we put a file over there is, the instruction is here. It's using the dd command. This one is not particularly dangerous because we are only going to copy the content of a quote-unquote drive, but we are creating a file in a particular folder. In other words, if you mistype the OF, unless you mistype it in a very specific way, you're not going to do a whole lot of damage. Okay, but there is dd can do a lot of damage in some other cases. All right, so we'll go ahead and run this command, and I'll explain what it means first. dd is a command for duplicating disks. Okay, I'm not really quite sure. I have not found the origin of the name dd. Does anyone know the origin of the dd command? I think it's disk duplication, but I could be wrong.
I thought it was disk dump.
Disk dump, that's probably a very good way to describe it as well. So it's a disk dump or disk duplication. It just takes the entire disk and dump out the content. IF is input file. So the input file is an entire device. In the notes here, it is SDB1, because we are using the rescue disk. But in class, I'm using the other one because I already have my setup done. I'm just setting up the next drive. So that's why it's loop 0 in this case. So we'll run the command, and we'll specify dd if equals to dev loop 0 in this case. It's basically whatever has the ISO 9660 device. Do we have any questions?
What is loop 0? It's like a pointer?
Loop 0 is called a loopback device. In this particular case, we are treating a file, the ISO file, as if it is an actual CD-ROM. And that's why it's called a loopback device.
So you're pretty much mounting it like if you use like Gaming Tools Lite on Windows,
Yeah.
it mounts it up this.
Kind of like that, yes. It is the same idea. It's the same idea. But whatever the output of the mount bar grep ISO command comes out to, that's the device that we want to use for the dd command, because that's where the ISO file is located. So we'll do this part, and then the OF stands for output file. The output file is going to be pretty much the same thing as what we described in the notes here. So the output file is going to be /media/user. I named the drive boot, B-O-O-T, all uppercase, but you can name it any way, anything you want. It's just that it has to match the label of the partition. Okay. So in this case, OF equals media user boot img. Okay. Now the last part is kind of important. Okay. So I just choose to use this particular file name. If you don't feel like typing a long file name, you can change this part. But then all the other steps will have to be consistent with whatever name you choose to use here. Okay? I'm just going to follow the notes here. Okay? I'll spell out the whole name. And I'm just trying to find a way to show both at the same time. Here we go. All right. So live image i386 dot hybrid.iso. The last part of the command, which is bs equals to 1k, specifies the block size of copying. So instead of copying byte by byte, which is going to be very slow, lots of overhead, I'm now copying 1k blocks, 1 kilobytes at a time. Okay. You can specify 4K if you want to, but 1K is going to work. So BS equals 1K, and then you just press the enter key. Depending on, now this is the part that really depends on whether you use an external hard drive or a thumb drive. If you use a thumb drive, this can take a long time, okay? A lot of thumb drives may claim that they are high-speed devices and it's USB 3 compliant. Well, USB 3 compliant doesn't mean jack, because all it is really saying is we got a 6-lane highway, we got an 8-lane highway. But if you're on a moped, you're still going at 25 miles per hour. Okay? So USB 3.0, you know, as a stamp on an external hard drive, external thumb drive, simply means this is certified to get onto a 6-lane highway. That's all it's saying. But if it's a moped, it is still a moped. All right? Okay, so this might take a while. So I'll just kind of leave it alone, you know, let it stew a little bit here. The next step is to run this command grub install. And I know, you know, this command is kind of long, but trust me, this is not the longest command that I have typed, not even close, okay? So I'll go ahead and explain a little bit of the options that we have here. Grub install is the name of the command. It is going to install grub, okay, on the device that you choose. -- force is required because there's one little thing that prevents grub to install it without the force option. Okay, you can try it once without the force and see what it complains about. It's a trivial thing, it's not dangerous, but it will stop the process, and that's why we have to force it. -- force simply means, yeah, something, you know, along the way is not exactly how grub likes it, but it's going to be okay. Root directory is basically specifying, you know, where we are going to install boot. Okay, now this has to be consistent with the previous command. Since I did not use BOOT all uppercase as the label of my drive, it is boot img all lowercase. I have to be consistent here as well. The last one is specifying the actual device or the partition that is mapping to this part here. I'll show you guys, you know, how to get to that. Okay, that's actually pretty easy to do. But first, we have to wait until DD is done. Well, that is really fast. Okay, this is a good number to check. Okay, with this particular external hard drive, to copy 2.8 gigabytes, it took 153 seconds, and the average speed is 20 megabytes per second. Is that even coming close to the limit of USB 3.0?
Nope.
No? That's a pretty much USB 2.0 speed.
Even less.
Well, there's a very good reason for that. The computer only has USB 2.0. So the drive is USB 3.0 ready, but it doesn't matter because the off-ramp into the city is a 2-lane highway. The interstate is 6-lane, but you know the last bottleneck is only 2-lane, so it is still restricted. But it's still reasonably fast. Okay, I can run my Linux distribution out of a USB 2.0 connection using an external hard drive with reasonable speed. So there's no need to upgrade anything to USB 3.0. 2.0 is fine, but it has to be an external hard drive. Now, if this is an external, not an external hard drive, but a thumb drive, that speed can go all the way down to like 3 megabytes per second. So it's going to take a lot longer to get this step done. Okay. All right. So now that that part is done, I'm going to follow this instruction here. Okay. So we'll go ahead and run this command first, just to find out what device is storing our boot img device, because I just want to be sure. I don't want to do this to the wrong partition. Okay. So we'll say mount grab BOOTIMG. Okay. And it shows that it is on SDC2. Okay, so we want to keep that in mind. It's on SDC2. And then we'll go ahead and run the rest of the command. For those of you who really don't want to type everything, guess what? There's a shortcut. Copy and paste. Now, there's only one thing you have to be careful about. When you copy, don't copy the next line. Don't copy the new line character. Otherwise, it will execute the command as it is, which may or may not work. Okay? So now we have to go back and tweak it a little bit because it's SDC2. Okay, remember the output of the previous command. And it's not boot, it is boot img all lowercase. Okay? The rest should work. And some people are probably curious, what if we don't supply force? Well, let's check it out and see what grub has to say about this. Grub is interesting. It would actually try to find all installed operating system on that drive. Okay, if you do this to an internal hard drive, it will actually try to figure out, hey, you have Windows already installed, and it will add an entry to the boot, the startup sequence. Are there any questions about what we are doing or why we are doing this? Sometimes the why is more important than the what. Okay, this is why we have to use -- force, because it says it cannot find a grub drive for SDC2, check the device map. So we'll go ahead and say force. Should fix it. I actually tested all of these steps before as I wrote the notes.
That's because grub is looking for a bootable partition? Is that the error?
No, it has a very stringent kind of thing to look for the drive to install it onto, and because of the way we mounted the drive, it fails to meet one of it's complaining about the same thing. Okay.
So the force command is forcing it to mount the drive? Is that?
Right, but it's still not working. Instead of using SDC1, you need to use the actual device name of the boot partition. You can confirm that by issuing the following command. Okay, so we looked at this already, and the command is complaining cannot find a grub drive for SDC2. Okay, this part you don't need to do. I'm just doing this to check SDC as a drive and see SDC2 is my FAT32 partition. It is correct. Grub install force root directory is maybe that's all correct.
No, it says SDC1.
Right.
SDC.
But that's because in that case SDC1 corresponds to the boot partition. In our case, it is SDC2 that corresponds to the boot partition. So the use of SDC2 is correct. All right, let's see. What did he complain about again? It is cannot find a grub drive for SDC2. Check your device map. All right, that's it. SDC2 is here. I am root, so I should be able to do all that. Well, okay, this is a good case to show you, what if something does not work? Well, you look up the man page. Man stands for manual. It's kind of like online help. So we say man grub install, and it will explain.
Is it like what's that? After grub,
Grub dash install.
yeah.
All right, so it shows us all the options. -D use images and modules under dir. Okay, that we don't have to specify. Install modules. -V is verbals. Okay, we might want to turn on verbals just so that we can see the messages. Boot directory. It basically, this option gives us the ability to specify another directory, which we don't need to do. We can just use the default. force install even if problems are detected. Okay, that's why we used it. That should have taken care of the only problem that we have to deal with. Recheck, delete the device map if it already exists. Okay, so the problem has to do with the device map. You know, for whatever reason, grub does not know what SDC2 is. -D is install use images. Okay, that one we looked at already. Okay, so we're going to turn on verbose and run the same command again. It doesn't really help if I run the command the same every single time. So we'll just turn on verbose this time and see at which point it complains. And whatever it complains about has to do with a device map. You know, it's not in the
What
device.
did you say, verbal?
Huh?
Verbal?
Verbose. VERBOSE, in details.
Oh.
So this part is okay. It's copying the module files, right now. Okay, so what is failing is this part. Device SDC is a parent of SDC2. SDC2 is present. So device map is the only thing it's complaining about. So we'll go ahead and just search for grub device map. Okay. If the device map file exists, the grub utility reads it to map BIOS drives to OS devices. This drive consists of lines like this. Blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, even OS device names are not always stable. By using UUIDs or file system labels when generating grub config, device map file is not entirely obsolete yet. It is used for overriding when the current environment is different from the one on boot. Most common case is the use of partition of logical volume as a disk for virtual machines. You can put any comment in the file if you need it. Okay, that's not helpful. Let's grub make device map. Alright, we'll try again. I just ran the command to generate the device map, and we'll see if that fixes the problem. I didn't have to do that when I wrote my notes, okay, so I know for sure that it's something that's different about this process. It's still complaining about it. Recheck. Delete device map if it already exists. That's the only thing it mentions about the device map. Try that too. Still complaining about it. So SDC3 is corresponding to this UUID, and I want to see if I can just manually enter the UUID. Force file ID. identifier file if UID is available. Oh, there we go. The ID of the bootloader. Apologize for this particular problem because it did not occur when I wrote the notes. So let me unmount it first. Disconnect the drive and then reconnect it. Okay. So remount the drive. Repeat the command. And check my own notes, just in case I skipped one step or something like that. Yep, it's still complaining, cannot find a grub drive for SDC2. Yep.
I was gonna ask you, I remember in the notes it said manage flags on the partition.
The boot flag?
The boot flag, yeah.
Okay. I don't think it's going to fix this problem, but yes, I did forget to do that.
That was good.
Yeah, I did forget to do that part.
And that's just basically kind of like labeling the partition to boot.
Right.
Okay.
Once you are done with the partitioning, you can right-click on the partition and just add it to.
Okay.
All right, so we'll go back to the C drive, and we'll try to put the manage flags, and we just put the boot flag back into it. You can do it retroactively.
For some reason, it also checks ESP.
ESP?
Yeah, it just automatically does
Huh.
it. I
Okay.
don't know why mine does that.
This one doesn't do it. Okay. Well, now that we have changed that flag, we can try the command again and see if it works. But somehow I don't think that's the issue. It might be. That may very well be the only issue.
Could it just be my external hard drive if it automatically adds the ESP flag?
It's possible. But the problem is, it cannot find a grub drive. That may be the bootable issue because, maybe grub wants to install it only to a partition with the boot flag set. No, that's not it. Check your device.map. Okay, where do I find device.map? Okay. So we use Google Map. We Google to find device.map and grub. So we can find boot grub device map is missing. You can create it by typing this, and that will put it into the boot grub directory. Grub mk device map. Okay. Okay, so the default is it's going to put it into boot grub device map, and I want to put it somewhere else. So we'll go ahead and use the -m option. Grub mk device map -m to media user boot image. thing. Okay, now the device map is there. And then we'll take a look at this device map. All right, when you have a text file and you want to examine the content, you need to use an editor. It depends on your familiarity of different editors. Since we do have the full GUI in this case, we can just use mousepad, which is kind of like Notepad. So I say mousepad, and then media, user, boot image, boot, grub, device map, and look at the content of that. So it only has a device map for the entire drive, but it does not have a device map for a particular partition.
Like it's not mounted? Is that what's happening? Like it's not mounted? Like those partitions?
Well, it has the device. I think that's what we need. So we'll go ahead and run grub install again, because now there is a device map file. So we'll go ahead and give it one more try. And I'm gonna look up here too. Grub install create device.map. Nope, still complaining. Arrgh. It has HD2. You know what? I think I know how to fix this. Instead of using SDC2, we'll go ahead and use this instead. Because it's trying to find an entry corresponding to it in SHD2.
So it's looking in the map, right? So you're just
Yeah.
going to address it directly.
So we have to find a way to address that. What was it? No, it's not by ID. No, that's not it. By UUID. Was it by UUID? Okay, that's okay. We'll take a look at the file again. It's by ID using USB HD something. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. By ID. And then we want to use USB-WD and let it try. Because it's trying to match the device name to an entry in the device map. Either that, or I forgot how to run grub install correctly. So we'll go ahead and check the option here. So the install device does not require an option. It's still complaining, and it still knows it's SDC2. I'll have to kind of figure out this one and then report back. Yep.
Is the boot flag mandatory?
The boot flag is not mandatory.
Okay.
When you install, let's see.
Because I got it to mount on my desktop.
Say again?
I got it to mount on my desktop without the boot flag.
Yeah, to mount it on the desktop, you don't need that.
Okay. But we do need that to put grub
Yep.
on the boot. Okay.
Yep. What happens is when you start up a computer, it will go through. Well, the boot flag actually is actually important, because it will go through all the partition table and find out which partition has the boot flag turned on, and then it will try to boot to that particular drive.
Is it okay just to make the flag after we do all
Yes,
the grub
absolutely. You can
configuration
turn it on after the fact.
Okay.
But I have a major problem here because I cannot install grub, and that kind of prevents, it kind of stops all the further steps. So I can't really proceed after this point in my own nodes. But I try everything actually inside a virtual machine, so they're all really tested, except in this case it's not working. So there's no point in continuing while you guys are here. So I'm gonna stop the class a little bit early today, so I can kind of continue to look into this one. I will give the drive back to you because I'm assuming that you probably want to drive back because you still have a 2.6 terabyte portion that you can store stuff, so you can actually fill it up.
Yeah,
so I'll give the drive back to you,
Yeah.
and I'll just stop the class at this point, and I'm gonna do some research. And then when I find a solution, I'll update the notes, and I'll send you guys a message through Moodle when I find a solution. And I'll just say, okay, this is how we are gonna do it. Okay.
Do you expect that we do it next week when we're coming back to class?
It depends on when I find a solution.
Right. Because I'm sure that I need extra help.
Right. Yeah. So we'll check on that. When
So
I
right
actually
now,
find out.
what you're going to do? Just leave it as it is.
Okay. So right now, what you can do is to do all the steps, make the rescue thumb drive, do the partitioning, and just stop at the step of installing grub. Okay. So that will still keep you busy for maybe a hour or so. Okay. Just stop at the point of installing grub because you really cannot get past that stage at this point. Okay. Now you can try it. Okay. Because I can't do it now here does not mean that it will fail in your case. Because remember, I'm not following the notes directly either. I am using an environment that already has everything set up. So it might actually work in your case. If you try it and it works, more power to you. But I will try my best, to figure out, why it is not working in this particular case. Yep.
Besides that, what you just said, is there anything that's due by next class on Moodle?
Well, I can always change the due date. But with this one, you really cannot proceed after this unless you can get grub installed. So what you can do is to go through the other stuff, the text, just do the reading. You can definitely do that part without having grub installed because those are all concepts and they're not actual procedural stuff to do. Okay, so getting back to this part here, the lab you can only finish halfway. And live distribution with an external hard drive is just me walking around to make sure it is working and give me the points for that homework. So these two, we may not be able to do, but all of the other ones is just reading. These things look like a quiz, but it's not. It's really just reading material. So I definitely would say, okay, go through all of this stuff here. It's just that by the time you get to, installing grub, just hold on until I give you, an additional information of how to proceed at that point. Okay. So you still have plenty of stuff to do, plenty of stuff to read. And the most important part is not just to read, but to understand the material. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for your patience. This doesn't happen often, but occasionally, it's like, okay, why is it doing this? Yep. Oh, sure. That's your thumb drive here.
Thank you.
So you can still install the rescue disk on your thumb drive. So that part you can still do.
Yeah, I'm good to go.
And I'm going to give you back your.
Mr. Pio, I have a class on Tuesday that I need this to do for my homework. I still can use this, right?
You can use the drive now.
Yeah, for my the other class. Yeah.
Correct. In fact, I will.
I don't need to do the partition.
Yeah.
Things like that, right?
Go ahead and plug it into Windows and see if Windows, just see the Windows partition because that's what Windows is supposed to do. Because I don't want to screw this up, so you cannot use the other 2.6 terabytes.
I was wondering if you could tell me something that's outside of the class. I have a couple of laptops that are completely busted. Like one of them, the charger port is broken and won't charge.
So what part?
Like when you plug the charger in.
The charger? Okay.
Yeah, the actual input thing doesn't
Okay.
register it, and the other one, the computer is the screen it just burnt out because that's the thing that those type of computers apparently do. High school.
Okay.
So I was wondering if you could help me, like, if there's anything here that could like mount hard drive, laptop hard drive, or something like that, where I can just get the data off of it.
Okay, well, I can't really do it in the capacity as an instructor.
No, that's what I was saying, like outside of the class.
Yeah, so what I can tell you what you can do, you know, but you will have to kind of do it, you know, do it yourself.
Would I be able to do it from here?
Huh?
Is there tools here that could do it?
No, I can't. We cannot use any tools on this campus. But the tools are not expensive. You can, if you go to Fry's, what you need is a. How old are those computers?
They're not old. They're both Windows 7. Yeah.
Okay, so they are SATA already. So what you need is to get a USB to SATA conversion thing.
Alright.
And you can buy those from Fry's. I think those are what,
20 bucks.
20
Yeah,
bucks.
20 bucks or
20
so.
bucks.
They are very useful.
What model is it? A HP or?
One of them is a Toshiba.
Okay.
I forget what the other one
If they were
is.
an HP, they only have 3 different screens.
Like it's it was like a really small. The one that with the screen burnt out. It was like a really small computer laptop. It was I got it free from my high school, and it was it lasted like a year, 2 years before it happened. So it's not like a lot of stuff on it, but there's still some stuff on it that I would like to have.
Well, does the VGA port still work?
Yeah,